It's a World War III update. Here's what's going on. So I had to take a break for the last 48 hours so that my thoughts could gestate into something. Periodically, you just have to sit back and meditate, because the information that we're bombarded with on a daily basis, in order to truly decipher it, it really requires that you take a deep breath, you get your emotions in check, and then you try to look at it from a high level, okay? Engage in a little bit of circumspection, and you'll likely come to find that what you're being told, or the reaction that they're trying to get out of you, is just part of an agenda. Now, we're going to talk today about how the Epstein files factor into World War III, because it plays a big part in all of this. In fact, it's incredible to think that some perverts on an island are what will be used to bring humankind to the brink of nuclear Armageddon. But I'm going to connect those dots for you today. Just so you know, silver hit a record high at the time of making this video. We touched $54 an ounce in futures trading. I know we're not in a backwardation phase yet, but I think spot and futures trading are at parity right now. So, I mean, that's a record high. We had a record close. The metals markets are exploding back once again, because the market reset is most certainly coming. And to any of you old geezers who lost faith and decided to panic sell at 50 because you thought things were running too hot, if you needed the money in this austere economic environment, I understand that. But if you didn't, and you just panic sold to make a quick buck, know that you are your own worst enemy, okay? Metals are something that I don't possess in large amounts, but I gotta say, I would never, ever sell at this stage in the game, because this system is about to go bust. All the signals are flashing red right now. You had silver shop owners who are refusing to buy the idiots' silver who wanted to come in. And these are the same guys who've been talking about silver is going to go to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Well, put your money where your mouth is, okay? Don't just close up shop because the market's running a little bit hot. This is the ebb and flow of the market. You got to buy the ticket, take the ride, practice what you preach. And sure enough, here we are back at 54 bucks an ounce. People are going to look back at this someday, and of course, it's all determined by the currency that it's measured in, which is being debased on a daily basis, especially with the upcoming $2,000 stimulus checks. Look, all of this stuff is connected. Here's the short and skinny on Epstein and Trump. I'm not going to waste your time. So what they're trying to set up right now is for the Democrats to look like a bunch of idiots, because you'll notice that all of these emails that are being released, it's not like this is incontrovertible evidence. There's nothing truly officially incriminating in any of those emails. It's all fringe stuff which is open to interpretation. Yeah, a lot of it is very suspicious. However, I mean, even the email service itself, that whole thing could be fabricated for all we know. And we know that they're going to redact whatever they want to redact, because this whole thing is a honeypot blackmail scheme. And of course, the whole purpose of this is to get Trump to comply with whatever global geopolitical financial agenda is next on the list. So here's what's going to happen. Next week, they're supposed to vote on whether or not to release all these files. Whether they release them or not, it's going to be heavily curated and redacted, and whatever they don't want to declassify, they'll make sure that it doesn't. Same old shit from January. Right now, they're basically holding a gun not only to Trump's head. It could even be that Trump is perfectly innocent, but he's trying to protect people in his family, or people around him, or people who know that they'll take him out, okay? But I'm not necessarily saying he's innocent. I don't have that information. What I do know is the setup here is too obvious. The timing is everything. Look at the timing. Why all of a sudden does the Epstein, geez, making conflations of various words. Why is it all of a sudden that this is in the news cycle again? I mean, it just remanifested a story that was effectively dead and people had given up on, except within the fringe, corners of the internet. All of a sudden, it's back in the news, coincidentally within 24 hours of a government reopened. So it's an attempt to transfix people on the age-old political dialectic that they use when things are running hot, like the markets, or geopolitically, things are about to hit the fan all around the world. You have the situation with China. Rubio is commenting on it today. That's about to ratchet up. You have the collapse of Preparedness, which could be a pivotal battle that the Ukrainians have now lost, which we're now seeing, B-52 bombers skirting Russia's borders, and all kinds of spy planes and very suspicious activity that signals increased NATO involvement in that conflict to present the total collapse of Ukraine. We're likely going to see the green lighting of Tomahawks because of whatever it is they're blackmailing Trump with here. We're going to see Venezuela go hot real quick. That one probably be short-lived because I'm sure they have all kinds of sleeper cells. And you're going to see a pager-style attack happen inside Venezuela, no doubt. The question is, are they going to be able to successfully do the military coup? And is it going to be over in 5 minutes, or is it going to take 5 years? That's really the question. You have the Iranians now who are confirmed to be working independent of the surveillance of the International Atomic Energy Agency on nuclear refinement. They continue to not disclose the details of their highly enriched uranium. And, you have the debt bubble that's about to burst. I mean, the Dow Jones is closing in on $50,000 in the face of every flashing red economic signal, which tells you that that is hyperinflation. That's a market melt-up. They're about to cut people $2,000 stimulus checks from money that simply does not exist, okay? They're going into debt to try to juice the market one last time so people can pay down their cars that are at, record debt levels, or their mortgages, or whatever the case might be, or just try to make up for the inflation that Trump tries to tell people doesn't exist. All of this coalescing, at the same time with this Epstein reemergence and the government shutdown now being kicked down the road till January 30th. Oh, and I can't forget about Netanyahu, who's up against the ropes in his own country, that Trump is begging for a pardon from the Israelis. So everything is, this whole Epstein thing, either it's just a big distraction, or it's for the purpose of making the Democrats look like a bunch of fools. And when Trump is effectively exonerated next week, when these files get released and nothing that is truly indicting is found, then, the story will be put to bed. And that's only because Trump will have played ball and will have gone ahead, given Ukraine the Tomahawk missiles. There are a lot of analysts who suspect that we're going to see widespread blackouts in Russia this winter. That's the game plan in Ukraine, because they're failing on the front lines. The Russians simply have them beat at that kind of attritional, trench grinding warfare. And the Russians have won, effectively every battle, albeit, at great cost, whether it's Avdiivka, Mariupol, pushing them out of Kursk, which took like a year, Bakhmut, can't forget about Bakhmut, and likely now we're going to see the collapse of Pokrovsk. You're going to see flags go up there any day now, and then there's another city that is right next to it that they're going to take, and then it's on to Kramatorsk. And, this thing is just going to keep on going and going and going. But the problem is that as the chips get down on both sides, on both the Russian and Ukrainian sides, that's when people are going to get desperate, okay? And this is why you got this big Epstein gun pointed towards Trump's head saying, you better play ball, and you can bet your ass he's 110% going to play ball. There is no doubt about it. You also have the meeting with a bunch of the bigwigs. So you have Trump hosting all of the plutocrats at the White House tonight. The CEOs of Blackstone, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, the NASDAQ, I can't remember what her name is, but the CEO of the NASDAQ, I didn't even know the NASDAQ had a CEO, but apparently it does, as well as some other, tech oligarchs. And so they're hosting all these people because they know the bubble's about to burst, okay? And they got to make sure that everybody is on board for what is about to happen. Is it going to be a banks go bust situation? Is it just going to be a market implosion? Is it going to be CBDC related? Who knows what they're planning, but they're most definitely planning something big. It could even be the revaluation of gold for all we know. I don't think it's that, but they've been dropping subtle hints about that as well. So something really, really serious is brewing here. And all of these things just so happen to be coinciding at the same time. I do not think that that is a coincidence at all. So just get ready. Now, according to Serbian President Alexander Vučić, he's been known to make these sensationalist predictions in the past. Hey, guilty as charged, but if you look back at our track record, we get more right than we get wrong. Vučić is basically saying that Europe is full on in war preparation mode, and it's effectively, at this point in time, seen as a foregone conclusion that the Russians and the Europeans will go to war at some point in the future. It's just a matter of when. European nations are arming themselves at an alarming rate, he says. A direct military confrontation between Western nations and Russia is becoming unavoidable. My conclusion is that there is a growing certainty that a war between Europe and Russia will happen. They are preparing for war or for defense, as they call it. Romania, Poland, Finland, smaller countries too, and the Russian as well. Everyone is preparing. What can come from that? Only conflict. Today was the beginning of the deployment of these B-52 bombers, which of course are nuclear-capable bombers, as well as 3 aerial refueling aircraft circulating along Russia's border. The purpose of this is not known. However, they're saying that this is the beginning of an exercise. So for several weeks, the American aircraft will conduct a combination of bilateral and multilateral missions as a part of the Bomber Task Force Europe 26-1 mission, and then returning to the United States. But again, if you're the Russians, and as I explained in my video 2 days ago, you actually think that the plan is for the United States to do a decapitation strike against you because perhaps you're Vladimir Putin and you don't know if you can trust everybody around you. It is very likely that there are sleeper cells within the Kremlin. And look, this is an ongoing debate amongst a lot of the pundits here on YouTube as to whether or not the probability of Russia succumbing to some sort of coup is feasible or not. What I will say is that, that's a very, a tantalizing carrot to dangle in front of somebody. If you have people who are in the West approaching some of the power elite inside Russia and saying, hey, if you get this guy out of power, we'll give you this, this, and this. I was listening to a friend of the channel, Andrew Bustamante, talk the other day about nuclear war. And he made an interesting statement, and he said, look, if you're going to do a decapitation strike, and it's going to involve using nuclear weapons, first you assassinate the leadership, okay? And then that gives you a window of a few hours where the response to your attack is going to be potentially diminish significantly because, of course, you really mess with the chain of command. Now, I'm sure the Russians are quite thorough and they have contingency plans for all of this stuff, but it was apparent that they wanted the ultima hombre, who was Sergei Lavrov, outside of this meeting because they were genuinely concerned that this meeting would potentially be targeted by a decapitation strike. Maybe it was just an act of sabotage. Maybe somebody puts a bomb in the room, wipes out the entire leadership. People think this is fantastical. Oh, that would never happen. Look, if you have, drunken Russian generals with their finger on the nuclear button and you pay them enough money, I'm not saying that this is It's possible. I'm not saying it's plausible. I'm not saying it's the most likely. But if you're not just an apparatchik for, all of the Russophiles out there, then you have to be willing to entertain these possibilities. And I assure you, part of the reason why Vladimir Putin is still in power is because he is this paranoid to think about these things. I mean, since when was, overestimating or underestimating your enemy a good game plan? So it's important that people view things from all the angles, all right? Once you stop seeing the angles, I think there was a Mafia movie quote in there somewhere, once you stop seeing all the angles, that's when you basically get taken out. So it seems as though shit is developing on the Eastern Front with Europe and Russia. And I do think that a big part of this blackmail racket that is going on with this Epstein thing is to get Trump to green light the Tomahawk missiles, if only for the symbolism of it all, if only to, revitalize the morale of the Ukrainian troops and potentially green light Europe to take a more active role in this as well. The question is, how is Russia going to respond to that? I have a sneaking suspicion that, this nuclear talk, that has not went anywhere. That is percolating. So we just have so many different things now percolating at the exact same time. And it's like every day they put something else, into the fire, into this cauldron, this crucible of chaos. And it's only going to get worse. Iran is presumed to be rebuilding their nuclear program deep underground. Satellite imagery analyzed by CSIS shows rapid underground construction at Pickaxe Mountain, suggesting Iran is relocating sensitive nuclear facilities. Analysts warn that if Iran turns the site into an undeclared enrichment facility, it would violate the Non-Proliferation Treaty and risk severe international backlash. The IAEA says it still cannot account for the HEU, the highly enriched uranium, the 400 pounds of the stuff, which was a stone's throw away from being refined into nuclear weapons grade material. I already talked about Trump hosting the plutocrats tonight. Just a reminder, guys, the warehouse, you could probably hear the echo in here. It's getting quite empty. There still is stuff left. If you got Christmas shopping to do, I would suggest that you load up. You're going to find incredible deals, free shipping. I mean, you're not going to be able to beat these deals. I feel like you're not going to be able to beat. These are the bestest deals ever, right? I'm going to have to just do a little spoof of Trump for the final advertisement for CanadianPreparedness.com, but lock it in, man. Anything you need preparedness related, from ghillie suits to body armor to highest quality food to food preservation to NATO military gas canisters and tents that can endure in Antarctica and all kinds of, shelter options and home security options. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. CanadianPreparedness.com, 30% off store-wide. Get it, because you're going to regret it if you don't, especially after these stimmy checks come out. And when the Chinese finally cut us off, which it appears they're going to, based on what Marco Rubio just said, it's game over and everything is going to double in price. And you'll look back and you'll say, holy shit, did I ever get a steal of a deal? The great thing with preparedness stuff is that most of it, unless you're getting, like we sell some stuff like Garmin GPS, and even that is pretty future-proof. Like there's Garmin's from 10, 15 years ago that still, work just fine. Maybe they're not as responsive or as fast. But barring the tech stuff and maybe certain upgrades to anything that has a technological component to it, it's all future-proof. And in fact, it is all stuff that tends to increase in value over time. So it's not a depreciating asset. In fact, it appreciates over time, like a really high quality knife. No matter where it's made, even if it's made in China. I mean, we have knives that are made in Scandinavia and the United States, all over the world. But a knife and just steel is always going to, increase in value over time. just a lot of the things that we carry, prepping items, period, because they're things that are built to last and address some essential need as opposed to a superficial one, tend to retain their value over time. So Marco Rubio made a comment about the Chinese today, and he says the Chinese are undertaking the most rapid military buildup in human history. And of that is their expansion of nuclear capabilities. I think everybody is concerned about that. Now, I'm not sure if this is entirely true. I mean, the Japanese in World War II, while they were very rudimentary, but they were building aircraft carriers, I think like 3 or 4 a year at one point. I mean, they had dozens of aircraft carriers. I'm sure they had at least 20 aircraft carriers. Of course, these were rinky-dink things. They were nowhere near the level of sophistication. China does beat the United States in naval production by like 200-fold or something like that. So it is true that maybe in terms of technological sophistication and maybe in terms of nuclear armament, now that they're probably cutting a lot of back channel deals with African countries for uranium, with Russia, with North Korea, with the Iranians, there is a good chance that they are doing mass nuclear proliferation. And I think at the end of the day, that's why the US wants to do nuclear testing once again, because you can simulate these things all you want. But eventually, every few generations, and it's now been, over 2 generations, a generation is 15 years, you want to make sure these things work. So yeah, they're going to do a big old nuclear test. And again, it is going to be to mega fanfare. Mark my words. Now, if it was Joe Biden that did it, holy shit, that would be problematic, wouldn't it? I forgot to put my microphone up here. So usually I've been putting it on my hat, and that seems to be working really well. So I didn't do that, so hopefully it wasn't too crackly. So, the Republicans are saying that this is selective leak, this Epstein thing. I already told you how it's going to end. Trump exonerated in the court of public opinion, even though maybe he's still probably guilty or his family members are guilty. Look, all of these guys are guilty, okay? You don't make it to the top being nice. He's shaking hands and spraying cologne on a former Al-Qaeda head chopper because it just so happens to now meet their ends for him to do so. So there's no good guys at the top. You don't get to the top by being nice, okay? And I don't believe he's a malignant narcissist or, these are all just fancy psychological terms to describe people who are rapacious and selfish and, just cutthroat, unscrupulous people who will do whatever it takes to get more and more power. That's all it is. There's nothing fancy or nothing, that the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Illness can really encapsulate in some sort of terminology. It's simply that people are greedy and they want more power, and they'll do and say whatever it takes to get there. And at this stage of the game, it doesn't take much, to woo people over. Yeah, that's about it. Also, if you're in the United States and you want high quality preparedness food, I got solicited by another company today. Hey, we're a new company and, we got this great new preparedness food, same old dog shit food that all of these companies sell. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that I thought were good and had integrity who are selling this shit. Listen, there are a handful of brands that I would recommend, and I know this industry full well. It sucks because I don't get the margins, that I would if I would promote this dog food. But freeze-dry wholesalers, that's the number one. If you want anything from just your simple meat and potatoes, rice and chicken, to lobster, okay? And they have their own proprietary packaging process. It's the best in the business. It lasts the longest. It tastes the best. It's whole pieces of food. I mean, you pair some of that stuff, like you buy some chicken or turkey breast or pork chops or beef or something of that nature, and like some meat, some protein, something that maybe costs a little bit more, and you pair that with your staples, your potato flakes, your milk powders, your wheat or your flour and your rice and beans and legumes and things of that nature, and you're good to go. The other brands that we can only sell here in Canada because of all this border bullshit that's been going on: Mountain House, Happy Yak, Peak Refuel, which I think we're finally out of, Nutristore, which is excellent stuff, really, really high quality stuff. I strongly encourage you guys. I know I've been saying this a lot, but I think I still have a whole skid. I'm looking at it right now of cheddar cheese, Nutristore. I mean, I have no problem keeping it for myself. A part of me, I just want to kind of purge everything because we're moving to a new building. We're building a whole new studio. It's, we're turning over a new leaf with this Canadian Prepper News thing. And a part of me is fine just liquidating everything. But the deals that you're getting here are just absolutely phenomenal. 30% off, no gimmicks. All right. And what were the other brands that I failed to mention? There was one, but they stopped. They were local. Quest for Foods is no longer making, but they had really good stuff, really high quality, mom and pop type thing. They used extra large Harvest Right freeze dryers, and you can do that. Unfortunately, we sold out of freeze dryers. The Smart Money scooped up a freeze dryer like in the first week of our sale. I think those are the main brands that we sell. I think that's it. There might be a few more, but anything in a bucket, My Patriot Supply and all of this dog shit, personally, I would stay away from it. If they have to sell you politically, if they have to put like Patriot in the title, or, if they have to appeal to you with some sort of emotional appeal, then chances are the food isn't that good. And I think I'm allowed to say that. Legally, am I allowed to say that I think it tastes like dog food? I think I am. I'll have to talk to my lawyer about that. I just don't want to be, what is the charge there that I could be charged with? Oh, my brain fart. It is defamation, right? No, it's not defamatory to say I think something tastes like dog food, because I'm not saying it is dog food. I know it tastes like dog food. I've done tests on that shit. Now, Nutristore does have some buckets of stuff, but they were in the number 10 cans first. So a good litmus test is, does the company have number 10 cans? But not only that, because you have a lot of companies who started with the dog food buckets and then they moved to number 10 cans to try to, they knew that they were more credible in the minds of consumers. Packages are also no longer something which is foolproof, because it used to be that Mountain House made individual packages and they were really good. Backpacker's Pantry was the other one that I forgot to mention. They're pretty good as well. I'd say 7 out of 10, but perfectly acceptable. I could eat it every day and be fine. My stomach might not be the greatest, because you don't want to just eat freeze-dried food. But anyways, so yeah, capitalize on those deals. If you want freeze-dry wholesale food, go through the link in the description. It's going to be right under the Canadian Preparedness link. Cash in some Bitcoin, sell a gold coin, and stock up on commodities and hard assets, because that's what the rich are doing. They front ran this whole thing. I mean, you look at the LBMA controversy earlier in the year, it all makes sense now. Gold is now peaking once again at $4,200 an ounce. Silver exploding over the previous high. So I'm hoping it's not, what do the technical guys call it? They call it a double top. I mean, I think that's all astrology. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe they're right. If it's a double top, then I guess you got to wait for another 30 years. But I highly doubt it. Just hold on to this stuff. Hold on to anything physical, because we're entering into an age of artificial everything. There's a story I heard today about a woman in Japan who was marrying an AI. Okay? Now, this is not uncommon. In fact, I believe there was a guy in Japan who married some kind of Tamagotchi thing back in 2009. So this is not unprecedented, but you're going to see that more and more, and the birth rate's going to plummet to zero. Everybody's going to live in their metaverse domicile, eating sludge all day, impressionist sludge, which is lab-grown meats and proteins and whatever sort of soylent green contraption they can cook up for us, and people are going to be happier than pigs and shit, unfortunately, unless you are divergent, like I know you are. And for that, you got to get back to the land. We're going to be doing more reviews of land and various properties. We still got that series. I got like 10 videos that are made, uploaded, that I just haven't released yet because, I don't know, maybe I'm just being stingy. Anyways, subscribe to Canadian Prepper if you want to get those videos. And one last request. You got to go and check out the video that we released on Canadian Prepper with Aaron Acey of Jace Medical. I mean, this guy's been around. He's seen it all. He tells some incredible stories. He has some pretty ominous warnings for preppers about how a disaster zone is going to play out and why in the United States and Canada and these so-called developed Western nations, some of the biggest perpetrators of human trafficking lurk amongst us. And so you got to play that tape through into a collapse environment and really understand that the threats that you think are going to be foreign are not. In fact, they're going to be much, much worse. We're just better at hiding it, okay? So you got to go watch that talk. It's like an hour and a half. Put it on in the background. This guy knows his shit. He's been around, and we're going to have him back. He's going to show us some, medical procedures that are going to be vital for people to know. And of course, there's a link for Jace Medical. So those are my 3 companies. My own company, Canadian Preparedness, Jace Medical, and Freeze Dry Wholesalers. Okay, those ones, it's ride or die. All right. Thanks for watching, my friends. Take care.